Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our September product roadmap Q&A. Took me a second to. It's weird. Like I keep feeling like it's still early August. I also feel like somehow it's already October. I don't know. I've lost all track of time for this year. All I know is that 2019 feels like it was a year ago, but actually it was 3.5 years ago, and that 2024 is in 4 months, and I don't like either of those things. Anyways. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today we have some of the product team here, as well as Eric from Developer Relations, and we're going to talk about the product roadmap updates that we put out last week about basically what we're looking at for the next, near term and longer term. Of course, it gets fuzzier the longer term we get. And more importantly here, just to answer whatever questions folks have around those updates we put out. As always, like we do with all of our Q&As and all of our AMAs, if you have questions for us, please put them in the Q&A box. Don't put them in chat. Odds are that we will probably miss them if they're in chat, but put them in the Zoom Q&A submissions form. For those of you that are watching this after the fact on YouTube, apologies, can't get your questions in real time, but hopefully the questions you had that you wanted to ask will be answered here. If you are watching this on YouTube later and you do have questions that about this that we didn't cover, you can always come by the Discord server and ask those questions there. Most of us here are in the Discord server and we're happy to answer them there as well. With that said, before we get started with questions, Cameron, do you have anything you kind of want to start off with?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to real quick talk about the roadmap that we put out. Hopefully everybody has seen it. The real idea behind the roadmap update was that we are, an enterprise software company and we're focused on enterprise needs. And so there are a number of things that are on the roadmap that are reflective of that. I really would kind of think about it in two sort of core themes of work in the roadmap. The first one is like around the enterprise wallet service. I think a lot of people know that there's some work that we need to do on our wallet capabilities, especially around the needs of the enterprise. And so that's what the enterprise wallet service is meant to reflect. There are kind of two sort of core philosophies behind the enterprise wallet service. It's about making it so that we're pulling out keys and signing so that we can easily handle things like multi-sig, and then we can also share access to that wallet service. That's kind of the main one. And then the other one is that making it always on. By doing that, having a service that's always connected to the blockchain, it's able to monitor the blockchain better and keep track of state changes better. And this will help with synchronizing improvements, but it'll also help with a bunch of what we call watchtower features that'll monitors and alerts for things that are important, like when your coins are moving or when transactions are received, or maybe if a transaction got reorged out. A bunch of things that enterprises really care about, and then we want to help solve for that. So there's enterprise wallet service. And then the other one is Vault is a really important thing. So Vault is our sort of approach to adding better custody solutions for wallet management. And so, we've already released things like clawback, and we want to make things like multi-sig and recovery better and easier to consume. And so we're building out Vault to be able to do that. And so those two things are going to work really well together. There's kind of a supporting character in this, which is the iOS signing app. And this will be really our first approach into hardware wallets. And so we're starting with iOS signing because it makes a lot of sense, and we could talk about why. But then we obviously want to see all of the rest of the hardware wallets be supported, and they'll be supported by us, including Ledger. So yeah, really enterprise focus. Let's start laying that foundation to solve their problems and their needs. There's a bunch of foundational work we need to do there, like the enterprise wallet service, like Vault. But once we have those things in place, then we get some really exciting new things coming out of that. Things like DID 2.0 and VC 2.0. And so, that's kind of the theme behind the roadmap update.
Okay. So I guess the first question I've got here, it came in over Twitter when we first announced this. Someone asked, are there any Chia wallets that can sign a custom coin spend? Are we aware of any, or our own plans for our own, that a smart coin transaction that is not a standard coin can be signed to do something?
That's a great question. I'll go ahead and jump in on this one because I wonder who wrote this one, because I actually also got a similar question about this recently. And the thing is that this is actually a capability that's been spec'd out in chip 2. And so any wallets that are supporting chip 2 can do this. And there are a couple of those out there. Oddly enough, the Chia wallet is not one that can do that. And so I'm hoping to see some enhancements to fix that probably through Wallet Connect. So yeah, there are wallets that can do it. Ours isn't one of them. We want to fix that.
Okay. Got one here for you, Yiming. Are the custody tools that we have, are they going to be freely available, or are they going to be more productized and like a premium feature aimed towards just enterprise use?
Yeah, so the answer is yes for both. So there will be a version of the vault that will be available for free. That's going to really help demonstrate all the custody capabilities. And so if you think of like when we released our internal farm custody tool, we really wanted to make a much more user-friendly version of that. And that's what this is really going to focus on. And so that's going to be available for free. It's the part where that talks to the enterprise wallet service. That's going to be more productized as an enterprise targeted offering, where enterprises may want to use this vault custody tool along with the enterprise wallet service to manage all their assets.
Okay.
Just to kind of tack on to what Yiming just said there, because I think this is something that you'll probably see crop up under a number of new developments. You know, since we are an enterprise software company and we are also an open source company, you'll probably start to see us do some of the things that other enterprise software companies that are backed by open source do, which is there will be a lot of open source that we put out, but then there will be some enterprise specific stuff that is not open source. But a lot of the sort of core functionality, it's always going to be open source. It's really that enterprise sort of specific stuff that they want that doesn't necessarily always make sense for end users that we can go and deliver value into enterprises for. There may be proprietary software around that. That's actually not a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on the roadmap now, but just wanted to point out that you may see some of that.
So with the iOS wallet that we talked about, is that signing out going to be something that we're going to actually build and publish and distribute on the iOS App Store ourselves, or is it going to be more of a general code base for others to implement into their own apps and do themselves?
Yeah, so again, I guess maybe I'm fence-sitting, so it's kind of yes to both in this case as well. So, and the reason why that is our plan is to build the app and we want to get it through the App Store. That becomes kind of like our desktop wallet, a reference app for the signer tool. But we also want to build it in a way that developers, especially wallet developers, can leverage this into their own apps. So that they can leverage the signing capabilities that it brings, which is really about connecting and talking to the secure enclave on iOS. And so we both want to enable the community around this, as well as have a kind of de facto standard app that will be available in the App Store from Chia Networking.
Yeah, the intention really is to have the signer app be responsible for managing keys and generating signatures, and to be invoked by a wallet application. And so the hope is, like Yiming said, that other wallet applications will integrate with our signing app, but let this signing app handle key management and signature generation. There's actually a lot of sort of security considerations that go into the signing application, which is why I think it makes sense for Chia Network to put one out, because if you think about what is required from a user experience when you're signing something like a spend bundle, you really want the user to know what they're signing, and a lot of work has to go into a good user experience that is able to parse out these spend bundles, understand what they're doing, and have an intuitive user experience around that. We don't really think it makes sense for a bunch of wallets to try to reinvent that wheel. It makes sense to have a single signing app that many wallets can use. And yeah, I think so. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that'll work well for the developer community.
Okay. Speaking of that methodology, using the signing app as just a thing that another wallet talks to, our reference wallet, we call the reference wallet. It has kind of more become the de facto wallet than a simple reference. But we do call it the reference wallet intentionally. We do envision a world where our wallet is always available and there, but it's probably not the best wallet for you to use. Do we envision, well, the question we're asked is, do we envision a plugin system to extend the wallet rather than teams building their whole entire wallet themselves? and instead they can add more specific functionality or special use cases that talk to our wallet. I already know the answer to that's yes. We've talked about this many, many times. But I know, Eric, you want to talk about this a bit more, and I think you might want to as well, Cameron.
Yeah, I'm going to take just a minute here and then I'll pass back to you, Cameron. But this is actually a recurring theme in the wallet developers calls that we've had in the community. There's been a lot of interest around basically, can we modularize? Can we extend something? I know at one point we were talking about an SDK. There's been a lot of discussion in this space. I think what it boils down to from my standpoint is I think it would be really, really cool if a number of wallet developers out there would start getting more involved in the chips process, start actually helping to define these things. Because then we can actually build a standard we can all work against, and these things can happen more organically. Obviously, you know, CNI, we're building a reference, right? But we are not the only ones who are building wallets. There are many wallet developers out there. I forget what the current number is. I should really know that, but it's like 8 or 9 active wallet projects right now. And if we can standardize between those, then we can actually start to build something that's extendable. I don't want CNI to eat their pie. I want those wallets to be successful. And so we all have to come together as a community and actually collaborate on this. But yeah, Cameron, you can talk more from our.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that you're seeing take shape on this roadmap is an architecture that looks something like you've got a wallet service that is responsible for tracking the blockchain and constructing coin spends and asking signers for signatures, and then providing that all as a service to a wallet user experience. And so when you think about where plugins make sense there could be plugins for the wallet service to understand new types of coins, but there could also be plugins for the wallet application that is acting as a front end for the wallet service. And I would like to see there become sort of a growth in wallet applications that are built around something like the wallet service, where they could be even workflow or use case specific wallets, where they have something specific they want to do. They're calling the wallet service and they're doing that. But going back to Eric's point, where there are multiple sort of competing user facing wallets, they should have some sort of standards that they're trying to implement to make it very easy for a developer to add additional sort of user experiences within the wallet UI. So yeah, hopefully that gave you some answers.
Yeah, and just one final point on that. You think of it like when you're using Brave and or Google Chrome and you can install extensions on both. Wouldn't that be cool? Just throwing that out there, just into the universe. We'll see if that lands anywhere.
Okay. So on the question I got here is on the ETH bridge. Basically, how's the ETH bridge going to function? And generally speaking, mostly related to security and avoiding things like centralization issues and vulnerabilities.
Yes. Okay. Good question. So the bridge, there's many levels to answer this at. I'll start at the highest level. This is a permissioned bridge where you actually do have to trust the bridge. So it is centralized from that perspective. The bridge will be operated by a number of validators who require themselves to all sort of agree on what the bridge has to do at each step of the way. Getting a little further into it, the bridge essentially manages 2 multi-sig wallets, one on the Ethereum side and one on the Chia side. And they're monitoring each chain and deciding independently what action needs to happen as a result of activity on either side. And so when each validator decides what they think should happen, they're essentially constructing a vote, and they're all working together to collate their votes and then make whatever action happen. So they're working together to manage the use of multi-sig wallets by monitoring both chains. That's kind of the hopefully that's enough detail for this level of discussion, but hopefully that also answers your question around how we're approaching security and how we think about centralization.
Yeah, and I think we only have so much control over the ETH side of things. We're at the mercy of the technology there, but from the Chia side of things, at least, it's, you know, our bread and butter focus right now is on things like the vaulting and the multi-custody, and so like just using the technology that we're ourselves building for that, I think is a big of one of our big backstops against those kind of problems, at least on that side. This is actually a really good question here. The question is, for each of us, what aspects of the roadmap excite us the most. I'll start off. For me, at least, I'm really excited about the SECP 256 stuff, just because we fully stand behind the idea that VLS is amazing. There's a reason why Bram and company started with that technology, but I think it is fair to say that has been a bit of a speed bump to adoption by some third parties because of having to integrate that. SECP 256 will let folks basically do signing for various reasons much more easily with existing hardware devices, existing software, existing mobile options. I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunity for third-party developers. There's a trade-off, of course. The cost, not in development cost, but the cost of transaction is going to be higher. That's okay because this isn't supposed to be a replacement for our BLS technology. It's meant to be an alternative to allow other avenues that weren't easily available. So I think it's going to open up a lot of really cool stuff, hopefully, for us there. So that's the thing I'm probably most excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely the BLS CLVM opcodes. L2s are such a critical thing for developers. Like, I cannot overstate how big of a thing this is from a developer standpoint. This is literally the difference between kind of the small L1 chains out there and what Ethereum is. It's the L2s that make that. It's the projects that those enable. It's being able to do things differently than what the base chain does, and then you still use that base chain as a source of truth. So for me, that is by far the most exciting thing here.
I'll just say right now, what you're saying is possible, and so anybody who wants to go and build it should go and do it. There's no reason that you have to wait anymore. Sorry, Yiming, I think you were going to start going.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, for me, although it's a newer area for me, data layer and all the improvements that we're making there get me really excited because, there's a lot of things that you can do with data layer as, with some of the early capabilities and some of the later capabilities that are going to open up so many more use cases that we can tap into. And so, although I'm learning a lot about it every day, it is also very exciting because it's, kind of the potential that it unlocks is really exciting for me.
This is really hard to pick because they all work together to create such a awesome experience, and so I kind of want to say all of them, but I can't do that. So that's why we have the roadmap.
I mean, there's no rule book here you have to follow. I guess you could say all of them, but then you have to justify that. You have to then explain all of it.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and just say the enterprise wallet service because I think it actually is going to revolutionize the user experience of using the Chia blockchain. It's going to facilitate things like having better signing workflows when you submit a transaction and you'll get push notification to your phone, for example, to approve it. And anybody who needs to approve it will also get a push notification. And once those are all approved, then the signatures will be aggregated and it'll be submitted. That'll be really cool. But then it also is going to just make a much better user experience around the wallet UI, like synchronization is going to go away. And so, yeah, a lot of things will just be much nicer when you're backed by the enterprise wallet service. That's why I'm excited about that. So yeah, I'll go ahead and leave it at that. But I really wanted to say Vault because it's but I'm not going to. I'll leave it at that.
All right. So one of the questions we have here, following up on my earlier answer, I think it came in right after that, was does SECP 256 support unlock any new exchanges to list XCH? And the answer is probably, technically, possibly. What it really comes down to is there are exchanges we've been in conversations with that were basically like, yeah, Chia sounds great. We'll probably support it at some point once we get around to supporting BLS. So hopefully, yeah. There are exchanges out there, I think, who just didn't want to do the heavy lift of that support, and this will potentially unlock that support. It's also possible, though, that we won't see that instantly. I think there are exchanges out there that I've had conversations with months or even a year plus ago now who are basically like, yeah, as long as you're BLS, we're just not interested in supporting right now until other people do it. I don't think those same exchanges, if we sent them an email tomorrow and said, hey, SEC 256 is live as of today, you can go do that now, I wouldn't expect it to flip a switch and 3 days later they support Chia. But I do think there are exchanges who've been hesitant to put work and effort and resources into it when the body of work they have to do to support us is equivalent to onboarding 15 other coins that they don't have to do that work for in the same amount of resources. I do think the ones out there like that will be more likely to at a sooner rate, hopefully. So yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of those exchanges, that was the first technical blocker that we ran into. But once we get past that, we still have to get through the business cases.
Yeah. So let's see what we got here. Oh, so there is a question here. I've gotten this question in Discord and Twitter and now here. Basically, they're asking regarding recent plot format advancements from the no SSD guys. Do we have any discussions internally? Or are we going to continue working and try to match them, that kind of stuff? The answer on that's the same answer we kind of gave early last week, and that is we have people who are much smarter than most of us on the call. I mean, there's some really smart folks in this call. There's definitely smarter than me, at least. People who are much smarter than me, at least, are picking apart all this and diving through it and better understanding it. And we're still building a strong foundation on what we know, what we think we know, and what we know we don't know, and what is true facts and what is suppositions. And based on that kind of knowledge and understanding, we're going to put together kind of a plan on actually how we will address this and discuss it. I don't want to, commit people to things that we haven't made decisions on, because until we fully know the lay of the land. So the answer is we'll be reacting to it accordingly. But what I can say is that any improvements that are to be had that we haven't locked onto yet, we're going to figure out and make them open source and available to all. So, yeah. Do we have plans, I guess maybe, for the product guys, do we have plans to drive adoption outside of enterprise use cases? For example, the wider crypto community on Twitter, etc.
How to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one to answer because I guess what they're basically asking is the same question that we get asked a lot, or say the same feedback we get a lot, but phrased differently. And then it's like, why don't you market harder? And that's because I think there's a disconnect between a lot of run-of-the-mill crypto users between what marketing is and isn't. I think a lot of people think that like buying social media ads and creating things like airdrops and giveaways and social media campaigns is an indicator of success. It's not.
That's probably the answer they were looking for,
Yeah.
and that's more of a marketing answer. I can answer it from a product perspective, which
Yeah.
we've put together this roadmap that obviously is catering towards the enterprise, but I think that it's going to drive a ton of usability, actually, just to
Exactly.
simply.
Exactly, and that's why we're taking
users.
the path we're taking, because if we take the path we take with supporting enterprise and governments and NGOs, we end up with a product that has very stable longevity, that is not subjected to the whims of social media eddies and currents. There are crypto projects in the past that were heavily retailed marketed that actually were very promising, viable technology solutions. They were not pump and dumps and scams, but they suffered because their entire focus was to follow like the crypto 101 playbook of social medias and campaigns and influencer purchases and giveaways and airdrops. And when you stop basically when you stop taking that 10% higher every week and pushing it harder every week, they immediately kind of fell off. And that's a shame, because they actually had really cool technologies, and like you shouldn't be beholden to needing to up the ante every week on that kind of stuff. You should be able to focus on the actual product.
Yeah, and I'll also say from a DevRel side on this one, we are definitely not leaving the non-enterprise folks behind. I mean, we're still trying to, my team specifically, our entire task and goal right now is bringing the product basically more in reach of all users as a whole. That's everyone. That doesn't matter if you've got $500 million of revenue in a year, or whether you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay your AWS bill to host your website. We're trying to lift that whole basically float the whole boat higher. So we haven't forgot about you. We're definitely working for you guys as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our past work, we've been pumping out a lot of primitives as well. And so, I think there's a little bit of lag in terms of seeing that adoption by the community to build their tools and capabilities on top of that. And we're starting to see some of that come to fruition now as well. So, we do expect that to continue on for the primitives that, we continue to release through the end of this year. And, that will, through that momentum, we'll see also, more build up and adoption driven through kind of the standard crypto community.
Okay. Got some questions about the Time Lord Asics we talked about. We have commented previously, Justin especially, lots of updates about them being live on testnet. The questions I've gotten here are a couple different ones, basically all around, do you have any initial experiences on things working as expected on testnet? And are we still on track, we think, to have them live on mainnet by 2023, and around our plans and processes to actually put the Time Lords in hands of people? Yeah, everything's working as expected, I think, on testnet so far. When we first got them in and we did some hardware benchmarking and did some testing stuff, there were a few surprises. It was the surprises we anticipated kind of things, like the stuff where it's like, we don't know how X is going to behave in Y scenario until we physically have them in hand. Let's find out. And then we get them and we find out how it's going to behave. And now we know those kind of surprises. But yeah, no, they're working on testnet as expected. I think I got to double check Justin's comment in Discord from like 2 days ago, but I think they're running on testnet now. I believe it was Thursday they were running on testnet at the current speed mainnet runs, and they're continuing to be ramped up now to their full actual, like, ASIC capacity. Yeah, we're still on track to be on mainnet by end of 2023. Earlier than that for a few specific ones, like an initial 1 or 2 that we're actually operating ourselves, and then the actual like volume of them that we're going to give out to the community. I shouldn't say give, they're not going to be free. Those should be in hands of people by end of 2023. Whether or not they individually have them online or not, it's kind of up to them. And to answer the last part of the question about distributing those, that's still a thing we have planned. I have basically a form that we're going to circulate when we get a little bit further along. Probably in October. In October, there'll be a form I'm going to share with the community that basically allows you to show your interest in actually obtaining one and running it. The form asks questions like, we don't need to know your exact location, like your exact address. I mean, we need to know your address to send it to you, but not for the form, we don't. But we need to know like general regional stuff, like, what country are you in, to kind of get a narrowed down idea of where people are around the world, and what kind of environment they're going to be running them in. We don't need every single person to be putting these in like a data center, for example, but we also don't want every single one to be in someone's basement. We want a nice distribution of some that are in high availability locations, some that are in home lab setups. We're trying to make sure that of all the people who apply, they're serious about their interest. They have an environment that's going to keep it up and running stably. They are going to take the curation of providing this resource to the network as an important responsibility. And most importantly, understand that, these things are probably going to have a nominal cost. We haven't set the exact thing yet, but it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 1,000, I think Gene said on a previous Q&A, that they're prepared for. And then based on all those submissions, we're going to basically contact people and say, hey, you have the opportunity to acquire one if you'd like. Do you still want to? And then start sending those out. And yeah, they should be in people's hands before the end of the year. We also have a collection of them we've held back for ourselves. Basically, we operate our stuff in multiple data centers around the world, and we're going to be putting these in those multiple data centers as well. So there's some that we've had out there, some the community has out there, some that some of our enterprise partners might have out there. And the first part, our part, they'll be online if things continue the way they're continuing by the end of the year. Yeah. Eming, are there any particular sample use cases you have in mind you can share regarding the DAO primitive?
Yeah, with DAOs and the primitive that we plan on releasing, it's really going to focus initially on kind of smaller group use cases. So, being able to create a DAO or instantiate a DAO, being able to do a governance vote to change any of the existing rules of the governance rules itself, or being able to initiate a spend. And so, we do anticipate we want to get a lot of feedback from this DAO primitive because there's a lot of different ways and directions that this can go. But initially I would say it's more focused on kind of smaller groups, maybe not maker DAO type size DAOs, but We really want to use this as kind of a feedback loop to see what we can do to make improvements, because what we do release is going to be a fairly primitive, and so because of that, we do anticipate that some additional DAO tools to be built on top to really bring kind of the user experience around for that. And so I think through that experimentation, we'll be able to mature sort of the DAO primitive itself, as well as the experience that can be provided to the community to leverage DAOs to for their full benefit.
Yeah, and definitely feel free to reach out if you're interested in playing with DAO stuff. I can absolutely help organize some folks and get them connected in the right places.
Okay. In a previous either Q&A or an AMA, it's mentioned we'll be rolling out some new Chia List developer resources soon. TM. They said they didn't notice any developer tooling points in the roadmap, but it's something we're going to continue to invest in. So I'll let Eric talk about this a little bit, but I'm just going to prefix that with those kinds of things were something that I talked about, I want to say in the last AMA. Those aren't really treated like as a product from Chia, so they're not in the product roadmap. The product team here curates the product roadmap and the things that the product team is responsible for project managing and creating and ideating, and the engineers are responsible for building. Developer resources, developer tools and stuff is separate from the product engineering team. It's something that my division of the company owns with Eric's leadership. So that's a separate thing. So yeah, the answer is yes, we are continuing to work on those kind of things. And I'll let Eric talk about kind of what we're working on a little bit here that he wants to tease. But that's why you haven't seen it, is because it's not a product that the product team and the engineering team at Chia are developing. It's something done by the ecosystem team separately. So,
yeah, and a lot of what we don't do with a ton of fanfare on my team. It's more just trying to move the needle more towards ease of use. So but so soon TM is still the director there, but I will say we've actually started active work on a lot of educational content, so a lot of more in-depth stuff, especially explaining how this stuff actually works and something other than a 3-page long doc for a simple concept. We've put a lot of effort on my team into figuring out how to actually make this stuff consumable, because pretty much everyone in the ecosystem right now, we're all like top 20% developers. I mean, pretty much across the board, everyone I interact with on a day-to-day basis in our community are just genius level developers, and that's awesome. We love that. We love you guys. That's also a problem when we're writing content for people at that level, and that's what a lot of our content has historically been. So what we're trying to do is we're without dumbing it down or losing any of the the value in that content, we're trying to basically make it consumable by your average developer. I always say I was a terrible developer when I was a developer. I had to struggle through every single problem that any developer, if they hit a problem, I'd hit that same problem no matter what. It was awful. That's why I got into DevRel, because I actually have a lot of empathy for people in that position. So we're trying to help people like me be able to develop on Chia successfully. And yeah, there's some educational content. You may hear something about Chia Academy in the very near future. There's going to be some really interesting stuff coming down the pipe. So soon TM.
But much sooner than the previous soon TM.
Much sooner than the previous soon TM, yes.
So do we have any way we can easily describe maybe what how common users will be able to actually use the vaults?
Yeah, I think this will be really interesting because the vault sounds like it could be a totally different thing. And in some ways it is, but in a lot of ways, it'll be just like everything else that you're already used to. And so fundamentally what vault is it's a way of locking up coins and controlling how they're spent and managed. And a lot of this will actually happen under the covers and not in a way that users have to deal with. And so what I expect to happen is that the wallet user experience will, for the most part, be very similar. You'll log in to your wallet, you'll see all your assets, you'll do transfers, and everything will be great. It'll just so happen to use a vault underneath. There will be some places where the fact that it's a vault surfaces up. For example, when you want to manage the sort of custody rules around your vault, you can say things like, this is going to be a multi-sig and it's going to require this many signatures from this group of signers. Or if I want to invoke sort of a recovery path, then here are the keys or signers that are able to do a recovery. That'll be sort of settings and configuration level stuff, but on a day-to-day, I expect using a vault will be just like using any other wallet. So pretty excited about that. I want it to be the sort of world's very easiest to use, very advanced custody solution. And that's what we're kind of going for.
Okay. Let's see what we got here. I've got I got three now. Let's say two. Got three questions here. All about Chia TCG code and efficient. So basically all the questions are basically, you know, centered around why isn't Chia TCG in the roadmap? What's the status with the code? So it's not on here because Efficient's project, for those who aren't 100% familiar with what I'm talking about, Chia TCG is the prototype proof of concept gaming thing we've been working on. That is not a product by Chia. It exists outside of the product pipeline of Chia. Chia TCG / the code, like open framework, is a collaboration between Chia and many community developers. It is meant to be a proof of concept of what you could do with gaming on Chia if you wanted to. And as such, Chia is sort of basically being the connective tissue, bringing together lots of external partners together to do this. We're providing basically the framework and the guidance of everyone rowing in the same direction, but it's the community members who are actually working on building those things. And so it's not in the roadmap because it's not something that we're actually building as a product or releasing, and it's entirely owned by Efficient outside of the context of what we're talking about. And to answer the last question of where is he and why is he not here talking about it? Well, again, it's not part of the product roadmap, so it's not the kind of thing he'd be here to talk about. That'd be a separate thing he's doing independently, talking about these things. Also, he's not here because he's currently traveling the world, visiting game studios, talking about these kinds of very things and working on this project. So that's why. So yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Going back a little bit to vaults, you talked about, Cameron. There was another question they asked about, are we going to be providing educational videos on how that works, how to use them? I guess it's kind of a two-part thing. You and maybe Eric might want to talk about it too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe Eric just wants to take it.
Yeah, answer is yes. We absolutely will at some point. Yes, that is 100% going to happen.
Okay, simple answer.
Simple answer.
I already touched on knocking out several questions we got all about no SSD earlier, but another one basically came in. It's slightly a different question that didn't get covered by what I answered, so I will address this one. And it was basically these new compression tools and higher compression rates that, you know, there's growing concern from some people in the ecosystem against the original intention of Chia's design around and being environmentally friendly, and how it's supposed to be decentralized, environmentally friendly, and green. You know, are we working on ways to stop or control this trend? And the answer is we always have been. The thing about this problem, and I don't want to get really deep in the weeds in this, but the thing about it is that you cannot build a perfect impermeable system that will always prevent something technologically from ever happening or being developed. There's always going to be people who find ways to game systems work around stuff. The design ethos of Chia is not to make it impossible to spend lots of energy doing things that Chia does. The design ethos of Chia is just a bad idea. If you were to build this massively impressive system that allowed you to grind plots today using some crazy compute system of GPUs that you custom built for this, it might work, but you're going to expend so much energy and use so much hardware resources that you'd be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars per minute to generate one XCH. That doesn't make sense. There's no world in which that makes sense. There's no payoff to that. There's no benefit from that. So why would you do it? And that is how Chia is designed, and how we continue to keep it reinforced and keep it set up. So that is still true. There is not a system been created yet that allows you to economically and affordably do that. And our goal is to keep the system running that way. So I would not say the trend is growing to cause a problem. The trend is we always thought this would be possible. People got to it sooner than we expected, and we're continuing to keep the system designed that it's just inefficient and hard to do and isn't worth trying to do other than as a science experiment.
It's going to be a consistent
add to that, Cameron, or
Yeah,
I was-
no, I think you nailed it, which is we're basically looking at it from an economics and an energy expenditure perspective. We're just saying, look, we're going to design it in a way where it's more economical to just use disks. Yes, of course, technically it's possible to go ahead and throw GPUs at it and grind it. And some people will do that, like you said, for a science experiment or because they don't realize how inefficient it is.
Yeah.
And
I think
we're
there's a lot of people who
approaching
just
that
see it can
right
be
now.
done and want to do it and don't
Yeah.
realize it until they get the AWS bill for their like, you know,
Yes.
25 GPU cluster system for the 2 Chia they farmed in 48 hours and realized their bills for like $500,000.
That is probably something the community needs to keep an eye on, which is, yes, these sort of competing plotters will continue to crank up the available compression settings, but they're not going to tell you that you have crossed a threshold from an economics perspective.
Yeah.
So a lot of users probably end up running the risk of making a sort of less efficient, more costly decision.
Yeah, I was talking
realizing
in
it.
Discord last week about, you know, replotting my entire farm using like, I think C5s. Everyone's like, but you said you have a 3090. Why aren't you just doing C9 for your whole system? And I'm like, because I don't want a 16 core CPUs and my 3090 running full bore 24/7 in my home. Like that's a power draw I have no desire to pay for, and it makes no sense. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Do we have any updates on any L2 development stuff?
The update is somebody should really do that now that we've made it possible.
Yeah, that's the exact answer I thought I was expecting to hear. Yeah.
And if you're interested in doing that and you'd like some, you know, interaction, please talk to me. I'd love to connect.
I think
with
people need to
resources.
realize the people who build the chains don't build the L2s. They built the
Right.
L1. And so other people need to build the L2s. We made it available. It's possible. Go do it.
And by the
We'll help
way,
them be successful.
And by the way, you're actually not starting from scratch. We did a little bit more than just make the BLS opcodes a part of CLVM. There is actually a little bit of code that we've committed that shows you how to verify a Snark.js proof. And so that's even like another closer step. So hopefully somebody decides to do this because I think we all would love to see it happen.
Mm-hmm. So this one's potentially a little spicy, simply because we get into philosophical and logistical ideology around software development. In the longer term, do we expect to start managing and communicating software life cycles more specifically, like releasing long-term support versions of nodes and wallets and releasing, you know, short-term iterative updates and adhering to long-term support of certain versions? I'm sure you have thoughts on that, Cameron, maybe you too, Yiming, but I'd start it with saying it'd be nice, but the thing is that like when we do major versions, it's because we're adding critical update components or soft forks or hard forks. And so that really isn't an option in this kind of ecosystem. We're not Ubuntu. We can't say, oh, you can install the version from 2 years ago and we'll support it for 5 years and you can keep running that version because between then and now, we're going to have forks. We're going to have major updates that all the nodes have to agree on and understand what those updates are in order for it to be supported.
Yeah, you're either current or you're potentially not up and running.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're although we are making some sort of soft fork and potentially even hard fork changes, you don't want to miss out on the bug fixes, right? So there's not a lot that we can do to say you're in a place where you don't have to upgrade except for these upgrades yet. But you know, hopefully we do get there sometime. We're just not there yet.
Yeah. Yep. Cameron, question for you. Do you ever take off the Chia hoodie?
Hey, actually, no. You guys notice it's cold out here, and I get cold. But I have actually a variety of different warmings that I use.
I actually genuinely don't think I've ever seen you on a Zoom call without the Chia hoodie.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I'll switch it up.
I mean, I wasn't the one asking that question, but I do that question does resonate with me. I'm like, come to think of it, I don't know if I've seen him without that.
Well, I just put this on because I know people would like to see it because you always get the When merch.
Yes.
Emain can vouch for me. I don't wear this all the time.
Yeah.
No, I see Cameron wear it all the time.
Yeah. See. Yeah. Let's see. This just came in. This is a good one, actually. Product team, how do you feel about the lack of alternate client diversity right now?
Which client?
the actual Chia, like our Chia application, the fact that no one else has built an alternative application that talks to our RPCs or the nodes.
I would like
Well,
to
I
see.
think that's why some of the wallet service is there to help bridge that gap, right?
Mhm.
We know there's a challenge there around that, and we know there's a lot of inconsistencies with the different wallets out there in terms of how they're implemented. And so we do want to make that a lot easier, especially as we see like these new primitives that we release, and making that easier to be adopted by other wallets. So a lot of the designs that we're thinking about are how can we make that easier to get, I guess in this case, more client diversity,
Mhm.
with feature support, as well as any wallet specific features or experiences that are built.
Yeah, I think the way that I would answer how we feel about it is we don't want to be the one wallet that everybody uses. That's not our ambition. That's not what we want to do. It just so turns out that building a wallet is actually really hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sort of complexity around building and managing and creating spends and puzzles and all of that. And so, yeah, with the sort of new enterprise wallet service, that design is meant to encapsulate all of that behind the wallet service. And so that it becomes a very simple matter of making some very easy to make API calls to build a wallet user experience on that. So I definitely would love to see more wallets popping up in the future.
Aside from wallets, what about, I was also thinking, farmer implementations. We kind of see that with Mad Max. His is based off of a fork of our software, which is a perfectly fine place to start, and it's a good one. Also, so that's at least something in that direction. But also nodes. We hear a lot of talk from people about how they want to build a different node that is open source and works off our same protocols, but is just built in a different code base or operates slightly differently, functionally, not in how it returns results. Obviously, it needs to be compatible, but no one actually has. Any thoughts on that?
I have some thoughts. Yeah, because I'm in the camp of I would actually like to see another full node being developed, particularly in Rust. I would like to see that. We have a bunch of Rust code that we make available. We've got CLVM that's implemented in Rust under CLVM RS. We've got another package called Chia RS where we have a bunch of utilities that we've been pulling into Rust. So slowly over time, we've been pulling things out of Python and into Rust. So we've got a bunch of code and logic available there in Rust. I think everybody probably agrees that it makes the most sense from an efficiency perspective over time to move to something, I would say at least compiled, but Rust I think is the natural fit because we've already got a bunch of Rust code and Rust is great for this kind of thing. So yes, I would love to see this happen. It makes sense for Chia to do it. It's not a priority for us to do it right now. I'd love to see somebody else do it. I will just say, there are a lot of things in building a full node that are pretty straightforward, but there are some things that are not straightforward that you would have to implement and that are pretty dicey. So you just need to go through and take a look at the mempool manager in Python and think about, you really don't want to miss out any of kind of the subtle logic that's in there. And so, but that's probably the first thing I'd look at if you were thinking about doing this.
Yeah. I mean, there's a community developer in question who since fall of 2021 has said that building a node that's better technology based than ours is trivial work, and that they've looked at it and they could do it within a matter of days. And that evolved into, they've had one running that works great for, based on what they've claimed they've had it now is like 2 years. And it's just a matter of them making it available to people. But yeah, it's been 2 years and we've seen no evidence of it actually running on the network, because not to knock them, but I don't think people realize just how not trivial it is to build a functional node that isn't just an exact copy of ours. If you're going to build something that's an improved difference, it's actually not easy. And the developers at Chia are not the single best experts in the world at what we do, and no one can do anything better. We don't think that at all. But they are really good at what they do. We have some very top people in the specific fields in which they're experts at, and they're very, very good at what they do. And while I think it's 100% probable that there are ways you can improve almost everything we built, it's very hard to do so, and I think it requires a special skill set to do it. And then that's one reason why I think we haven't seen a lot of improvements in that space. So this question Well, what's going on with Brams poker and state channel? It's never on the roadmap, but it's always mentioned in the AMA. I know Eming, you kind of mentioned you kind of wanted to touch this a bit, but I'll start that with it's a Bram thing that's different from a Chia product. Chia is a corporation. We are not Bram's like pet output vehicle. So these projects like his, are fully supported by folks at Chia and are part of what he does here. But it's not every really crazy cool idea Bram has isn't necessarily a product that is on our roadmap that we track and build. It's things that Bram does, and we support Bram in doing those and helping get those out there, and it uses our technology. But it's not exactly a product that we ship and release. I know you kind of flagged that one, Eming, if you wanted to talk about it more or not. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to add that if you look under consideration, there is a gaming primitive there that covers some of the work that Bram is looking at. And so it's not committed from a date perspective because it's something that Bram is working through on the design and development of it. But, as it gets more legs and as it gets kind of closer to becoming a product, then, we expect that to land on the roadmap at some point.
Okay. So someone asked ledger support. We touched on that briefly when I talked about why I'm excited about SECP a little bit. But yeah, these, is ledger support still on the horizon is basically the question.
It is on the horizon. A little further out on the horizon, but not because we don't want to deliver hardware wallets. We absolutely want to deliver hardware wallets. We just think we can get to a better solution quicker with our iOS signer. And then Ledger will follow that.
Yeah, and to your point, the technology we need to make the iOS signer viable is the same technology that would allow Ledger to roll forward on their side rather than us waiting for BLS support in the simulator on our side and building it on our side. And so it's like you said, if you do that thing, we basically kill two birds with one stone, quite literally. So yeah. So someone else asked from the updated roadmap on there, we have remote GPU decompression expected in Q4 and support for creating compressed plots with a CPU and support of other case size with compression in 2024. So their question is, based on that, does that mean there's more BladeBit upgrades on the horizon? And I mean, yeah, I kind of think the roadmap's kind of obvious on that, but by that, but also if you just follow the BladeBit development, it's not done technically yet. There are still beta releases out there of a 3.1 and there's still feature incomplete sections that we're still working on. There's things that are still in beta mode. There's still things that are, still being worked on. So yes, there, those things on the roadmap are things on the horizon, but also like BladeBit itself is still an evolving, growing, developing piece of software. Is there a way to get dedicated support for those building wallets or nodes? Is Discord the only place to get this support, Eric?
Well, the simple answer is dedicated support. You're going to be going to Discord. However, talk to me. I want to interact with you. I want to help you. So reach out to me. Anyone on my team. We really do want to see you be successful. So if I can, make a connection, make an introduction, or give you some resources, anything like that, I am 100% willing to do that. And that is just talk to me, please. Find me on Keybase, Mando222.
Yeah, we got a lot of flack from people by forcing people to come to Keybase to talk to us for support, and then we tried to move to Discord where more people were comfortable and more people were. But at some point, like, there is an almost bottomless level of developer community support we will provide to the community, but you got to kind of meet us halfway in terms of like interacting with us. Like, we can't be everywhere all at once. We have a limited size developer relations team. We did just bring on a community developer or a developer community manager who is still kind of grounding her feet. We haven't really thrown her out to the wolves to you guys entirely yet, because it's one thing to be like a multi-year accomplished community manager for developer ecosystems. It's another to then take that skill set and apply it specifically to Chia. And so there's a lot of ramp up on that. And so we're trying to make sure we have all the support we can possibly give her to get her, ready for that. So we'll kind of be putting her to the wilds more and more. The developer roundtable this weekend is going to kind of be one of those first things, or not weekend, but Friday. And so, yeah, we're trying to be where we can, but we can only be, the developer ecosystem support avenues can only exist in so many places. So at some point, you kind of have to come to us for the support. If you come to Discord, if you reach out to Eric directly or one of the developer relations people directly, you will get like unlimited support within reason for what you're trying to do. But there are only so many avenues which we can provide that.
Right. I won't write your code for you, but I'll certainly help you get it done.
Yeah. I have a question, one update on the grant program. That really is out of the scope of what we're talking about, but I will just say soon-ish, this fall, we're gonna have some updates on that. We talked about it in the AMA last time, but I'm not gonna go into that because it's kind of outside the scope of the topic here about the roadmap. Let's see. There was one that I just saw that I wanted to you guys. Oh, so currently we talked a little bit ago about the node and the wallet and farming and upgrading that and variations of that kind of tech, being rebuilt in different language and stuff. We're currently evolving some of the Python parts. Some of them are just being updated to newer versions of Python. Some are actually updated to using things like Rust or other stuff where it made sense to upgrade. Same with the front end. We're upgrading some of the front end stuff to be a bit better technologies. Are we satisfied with the core architecture that we have not yet updated or are in the process of updating? And do we have any major revolutionary changes planned? And the person did actually conclude that with, say, in a 3.0. And I do want to kind of prefix before you guys go on the answer on that. Make sure people understand, like, whole number releases are a sacred thing here. Like 2.0 was not because we did 2.0 was not because we did some major update functionality. 2.0, great example. I think a lot of people think 2.0 is because plot compression was involved. Plot compression had nothing to do with 2.0 being called 2.0. They just released at the same time. 2.0 happened because there's a hard fork. And when the consensus changes, when the consensus system has a major change, i.e. a hard fork, that's when you'll see a 2.0 or a 3.0. And we want to do those as few as possible. In an ideal world where everything was working perfectly and we weren't behind the curve, technologically speaking, and we weren't like failing to meet what we wanted to do, and everything was working perfectly, in 6 years from now, we would still be on 2.0 in an ideal world. Like, we don't want to change that number. So to be clear, that's not where you're going to see or find major revolutionary technology changes. But I'll let you guys kind of answer the first part of the question now if you want.
Yeah, so I think that to answer the first part of the question, are we happy with the architecture and other things we want to change? Yeah, we definitely want to change some things. And I think that you'll see that reflected in moving towards things like the enterprise wallet service, which has a totally different architecture than what we have today, including how it's implemented in language choices. And so, yeah, we're definitely making those changes now. That's not seen as an intermediate step. So we're not thinking, hey, of the things that we're working on now, we're going to do a subsequent revision where we're going to overhaul it. Like, we're doing the overhauls now that we need. And so hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. And we're about at time. So I'll wrap this up with one final questions. We had two here and one I got separately on Discord about the same topic. It's basically, there are variations about talking about one-click farming. It was on the roadmap and then it's not. And then someone actually asked a version of this question that kind of leads into what I know your answer is going to be. And that was, with GPU plotting being so much more feasible to get plots quicker and easier than ever before, is that concept led to why we haven't put a lot of effort into one-click farming? Because now actually farming is a much more user-friendly and quick and easy process, or getting closer to quick and easy process. Either of you have any?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the answer is yes, right? The whole intention of one-click farming was, how does someone brand new kind of bootstrap themselves into a farming setup? And back when things first started on mainnet, it would take you 24 hours to plot. You have to get the node set up, wait 5 days for that to sync. So now you've got different snapshots of the node that you can download now. and getting that part set up pretty quickly. And then the second part of actually creating that first plot, it's now down to potentially minutes in terms of getting that first plot and getting your farming going. And so, a lot of the original premise of one-click farming was, okay, well, how do you get one plot for one farmer set up really quickly? Right. And now, we've kind of brought it down from a span of a week down to probably just a few hours now.
And I think one click was a bit of a misnomer too. It was more of a marketing phrase than it was a literal definition. Like I don't think a world where you ever just literally click one button and you're now farming all your hard drive space was ever an actual tangible result that would have made sense. It was more of it was meant to evoke the concept of very, very, very easy, quick onboarding into farming, which we've reached not by way of building a one-click farming solution, but by way of just improving technology across the board, across the whole farmer experience and onboarding experience. And then also there's community stuff too. There's community things like why is my brain freezing? Evergreen. Evergreen kind of has a solution that's similar to that in concept. You basically have a very easy, very simple to onboard thing for farming. I have seen people have mixed opinions about Evergreen because they're like, oh, well, I can build a server and fill it full of hard drives and I can get 50% more space for the same dollar that I would spend on Evergreen. It's crap. But the thing is, the people making those posts are people who are super savvy people who can build an Ubuntu server and rack it full of drives and throw in a state, know how to throw in a SATA PCIe card and array all those drives and get the whole thing up and running and get it all farmed and ready and write automation scripts and get the whole thing plotted over a weekend and turn it loose and automate it all and go. But that's just the enthusiast power user segment. That is, we don't want to only cater to those people. We want anyone, no matter their skill level. And so things like Evergreen are really great for those people. And that's the price you pay for the convenience. It's just like in the old days. It's a bit different now. Prices are more normalized. But I remember back like in the late 2000s, where people would shun people who bought like an Alienware desktop because like, oh, why would you buy an Alienware desktop? You can build a gaming PC that's the exact same specifications for half the cost. It's like, yes, if you know how to build a PC. Shocker, not every gamer knows how to build a PC. Well, now they kind of do, but back then they definitely didn't, right? And so it's different solutions to different mindsets, people that get you to the same thing. You're paying a cost for convenience, basically. So I would say that also kind of serves that one-click farming goal. That pretty much puts us at time. Is there any kind of like closing thoughts or last-minute things any of you want to kind of go over?
I would just add, we do have the submit idea from the roadmap. So, the product team looks all that stuff coming in, whether it's just comments that you have or there are feature suggestions that come through that. So please continue to do that. And, the other sort of like tactical plug here is we've got a, 2.1 release candidate that's available out there for beta testing. So if you are playing around with it and some of the new features and capabilities there, again, please route your feedback to us. We're actively monitoring that as well. So,
yeah. And I do want to stress to folks, we love having folks use our release candidates and give us feedback on them. That's why they're there, and that feedback is incredibly useful. What I don't like seeing is something I saw earlier today where people go on Reddit or other avenues like Discord and forums and stuff and complain. They're like, oh, I got the 2.1 RC and this thing didn't work right. It's crap. I had to roll back. And it's like, were you running the RC for the reasons you should be running it? Do you actually understand what you're opting into? So I want to make sure folks understand. We make those available and we want people's feedback and we look forward to your feedback. But do know by running those, you're opting into running stuff that has not been thoroughly vetted. If it was thoroughly vetted, it would have been released. There's a reason why it's a beta or a release candidate, because it has not been tested and you're helping us do that. So just please know that getting into what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'd just like to plug the Developer Roundtable on Friday. It is really a great place to get connected and get involved here, especially if you've been on the fringes of the community and haven't really had a place to plug in. Show up, ask questions. It's going to be a good time.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for being here today. Thank you, everyone, for watching, asking questions, and joining us. Had very few questions at the start. I got kind of nervous. I have to start making questions up, but after about 10 minutes in, y'all kind of came flooding in with some really great questions. So thank you. Yeah, we'll see everybody at the next Q&A or AMA, depending on which one happens next. Bye all.
Bye.